but it tears you up. Literally tears you up. I'm sorry. But it is, it's just like taking a big chunk out of your body. I loved her. And I'll always love her.
On January 13, 1972, life in the Randall household was proceeding as usual. 32-year-old Juanita Randall was busy in the kitchen preparing a meal for the family, while her 9-year-old daughter Debbie Randall was bubbling with excitement. Debbie was all set to join her friends for a fun time at the nearby playground, just a short 2-block stroll from their home. But before Debbie could leave, Juanita had a simple request. She asked Debbie to pick up some washing powder from the laundromat across the road on her way back. Little did she know, as she bid her daughter goodbye with a smile, that this would be the last time she'd see her cherished child. Debbie, full of happiness, headed off to play with her friends, but sadly, she never made it back home. What could have happened to young Debbie on that ordinary day in 1972, and where did she disappear to after leaving for the playground? Marietta is a city located in Georgia, USA, with a population of approximately 60,000 people. The community in Marietta is known for its diversity and strong sense of civic pride. Residents here often engage in various community activities and events, creating a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere. The city offers a mix of historic charm and modern amenities, making it an attractive place to live for a diverse group of individuals and families. Marietta's population rate reflects its appeal as a desirable community in the state of Georgia. Let's start the story and take a journey back in time to August 21, 1962, when a lovely little girl came into the world. Debbie Randall was born to John Randall and Juanita Wheeler Randall in the cozy town of Marietta, Georgia. She attended Pine Forest Elementary School in Georgia, where she was in 3rd grade, and her kind and gentle nature made her a beloved friend among her classmates. Beyond school walls in the tight-knit community, she was adored by everyone, and people often brought dolls for her when they visited her home as tokens of their affection. Debbie also had a big brother named Marvin Randall, and their bond was something truly special. Marvin loved his little sister and would always go above and beyond to make her happy. Whatever Debbie wished for, Marvin made it happen, highlighting the strong and caring connection they shared as siblings. Debbie was a source of joy for her family, and she had grand dreams and a heart filled with adventure. However, her life was cut short and never truly got the chance to fully chase those dreams and live life to the fullest. It was an ordinary evening on January 13, 1972, when Debbie was at her home in Marietta, Georgia, with her mother Juanita and her brother Marvin, who was feeling a bit under the weather, so he was resting in his room. It was shaping up to be an ordinary evening. Juanita was in the kitchen, busy preparing dinner, while John, Debbie's father, had yet to return home. Suddenly, with a burst of enthusiasm, Debbie went to her room, quickly dressed herself, and returned back to her mother with an eager request to go play at the nearby playground with her friends. This playground was just a stone's throw away, a mere half block and a quick 57 feet from their house. Right across the road there was a laundromat. Juanita remembered that she had forgotten to grab some washing powder from there. So, as she granted Debbie's request to play, she asked her to run a small errand. "While you're out, dear," she said, "please don't forget to pick up the washing powder we need." With a cheerful nod, Debbie happily ventured outside to join her friends at the playground, and didn't forget to promise her mother that she'd return home before dinner time. Little did they know that this simple request would mark the beginning of a mystery that would haunt their lives for years to come. The playground was just a mere 5-minute stroll for Debbie. Her usual routine was to play for about an hour and then head back home. So Juanita naturally thought she'd be back in roughly an hour and a half. However, when 2 hours slipped by with no sign of Debbie, Juanita began to wonder. She thought maybe she's at the laundromat, imagining the crowd there was causing the delay. But as 3 hours came and went, the sun sat below the horizon, Juanita's concern grew stronger. This was far from the normal, and as the evening darkened, Juanita's worry also deepened. Debbie had always been punctual and never missed her curfew before. By 9:45 p.m., when John, Debbie's father, finally arrived home, Juanita couldn't contain her concern any longer. She anxiously asked him if he had seen or been with Debbie on his way home. But John's face mirrored her distress when he said that he had no information about Debbie's whereabouts. The worry that had begun as a tiny spark now blazed into a full-fledged concern for their beloved daughter. At the moment listening to the voice, Martin also emerged from his room, and he couldn't help but notice the worry etched across his parents' faces. Being concerned, he inquired about what was happening. Juanita, torn between protecting her ailing son and the growing anxiety over Debbie's absence, finally broke down in tears. She told Martin that Debbie hadn't returned home, and she and John were going out to search for her. With a heavy heart, Juanita asked Martin to stay behind, keeping an eye on the house, and let them know immediately if Debbie returned. It was a moment of heart-wrenching decisions for the family. Fear and confusion swept through the neighborhood as the Randall family sprang into action to find young Debbie. Martin, being a caring older brother, couldn't bear to stay home and do nothing. He roamed the neighborhood, approaching people with questions burning in his mind. "Have you seen Debbie? Do you know where she is?" The response was unanimous shock. No one could believe that their beloved little Debbie was missing without a trace. Some recalled glimpsing her as she left her house, but no one had seen her since. Meanwhile, Juanita and John hurried to the playground where Debbie went to play with her friends, but it was eerily deserted. All the children had already returned to their homes. Their next stop was the laundromat, where Juanita had asked Debbie to fetch washing powder, but it too was closed by then. The minutes ticked away, and every empty road and quiet street they searched seemed to amplify the silence of their daughter's absence. Where could their beloved Debbie have disappeared to? At a moment, Juanita stumbled upon a box of washing powder scattered on the road that led to their home. It was a moment of realization that something terribly wrong might have happened to her daughter. Overwhelmed by worry, Juanita couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She made the difficult decision to file a missing person report, determined to do everything in her power to find her daughter. However, the police explained that, as less than 24 hours had passed since Debbie went missing, they couldn't officially file the report just yet. Still, they promised to do their best to locate her. Despite this devastating setback, the Randall family was touched by the outpouring support from their community during this difficult time. The community sprang into action, launching a citywide search effort which involved approximately 4,000 volunteers. Martin also took to the streets posting flyers with a desperate plea for information about his missing sister. Debbie, who had a fondness for playing baseball with her brother, was dearly missed by her family, and Martin hoped that someone, somewhere, had seen or knew something that could bring her back home. At the same time, the police were equally determined to find Debbie. They visited the laundromat where the owner confirmed that Debbie had picked up the washing powder as instructed. But the question was, what could have transpired in those mere 5 minutes between her visit to the laundromat and her disappearance? The police also interviewed all of Debbie's friends who had been at the playground that day, but none had any information about her whereabouts. 16 long days passed, and yet there was no sign of Debbie. Juanita and John were still hoping and waiting anxiously for their beloved daughter to return home safely. Among the dedicated searchers were a group of Southern Tech students who tirelessly assisted the police. After 16 days, on January 29, 1972, their unwavering efforts eventually led them to a tragic discovery on Johnson Ferry Road. On the other side of the woods, they found Debbie's lifeless, partially unclothed body. Her body bore the harrowing signs of a fierce struggle, as if she had fought with all her might until her very last breath to defend herself. It appeared that the heartless killer had used Debbie's own coat to silence her cries for help. Investigators believe that the perpetrator must have been stalking Debbie for some time, patiently waiting for the right moment to strike. He eventually seized the opportunity, abducting and subjecting her to a horrifying ordeal at various locations, before ultimately discarding her lifeless body in the woods. This heartbreaking discovery left the community in deep sorrow, and Debbie's parents were overwhelmed with the grief at the sight of their beloved daughter's lifeless form. The coroner's examination revealed that she had been strangled and assaulted, bearing deep marks on her body that hinted at the immense pain she endured. During this examination, a significant discovery was made: an unidentified hair, possibly belonging to her assailant. This find had the potential to be a breakthrough in the case, However, due to the limitations of medical technology in the 1970s, there was little they could do with the hair at the time. So it was carefully preserved, waiting for future advancements that might one day help uncover the identity of the person responsible for Debbie's tragic demise. As the days turned into months, detectives tirelessly pursued hundreds of leads, yet each one seemed to lead nowhere. Despite their dedicated efforts, the police found themselves in a frustrating loop, unable to uncover the vital clues needed to solve the case. These turn of events left the Randall family with haunting questions. What truly transpired on that tragic night? Who bore the responsibility for their daughter's demise? They grappled with not only the profound loss of their cherished Debbie, but also with the agonizing frustration of justice eluding them. For nearly 28 years, the puzzle of Debbie's murder remained without a solution. However, in 2001, fate intervened, giving the case a new chance. Detective Morris Nix, who couldn't shake the memory of this unsolved mystery, began to comb through old Coldcase files. As he pored over those documents, he stumbled upon Debbie's murder case. Diving back into the details, he felt like there were concealed aspects that hadn't been thoroughly examined in the initial 1972 investigation. Following his instincts, Detective Morse made the choice to reopen the case. He retrieved the evidence box, which had been tucked away for years, and inside it, he found an unidentified strand of hair that had been preserved with care. The FBI conducted numerous tests on it, but even with their efforts, they couldn't determine whose hair it was. The technology at the time just wasn't that advanced enough, so they decided to again wait for the day to finally bring the breakthrough in the case. This case stayed unresolved, but in 2015 it gained momentum again when Detective Morse volunteered for the Cobb County Coldcase Unit. He brought fresh eyes in the aid of advanced medical science, determined to crack the mystery that had baffled the police 46 years earlier. With the help of the media coverage which shone a spotlight on this old case, a woman named Sandra Walker emerged from the shadows. She had been one of the kids who played with Debbie on that fateful evening of January 13, 1972. Sandra bravely recounted her memories to the police. Although fear had kept her silent at the time, those memories were etched in her mind. She recounted nearly being run over by the man's speeding vehicle and the sensation of his eyes locked onto her through the rear view mirror. She could still hear Debbie's desperate screams and see her kicking as the man forcibly pushed her back into his truck. All the memories still haunted her to this day. To engage the entire community and reignite their memories of that fateful night, the police enlisted the help of a graphic designer. With the street now transformed into a bus terminal, Jessica Knoll took a fresh perspective on the case. Freelance artist Amanda Wood dedicated months to crafting a visual representation of Debbie's last moments.
You had to sit and think about what this little girl went through.
Yes, I did. I cried a lot. It was really upsetting.
Given Debbie's fondness for dolls, she chose to depict her story in the form of a doll, with her killer portrayed as the menacing monster in this tragic tale. This creative approach aimed to draw attention of the community once again and help uncover potential clues in the case. John, Debbie's father, held onto every newspaper article that recounted her disappearance, a constant reminder of the lingering sorrow and the mysteries that were left unsolved in their hearts. In the meantime, Detective Morse took a significant step by sending a piece of cloth, a circular one adorned with floral prints, which had been found on Debbie's body to the Sorensen Forensic Lab for a fresh round of DNA analysis. Thanks to advancements in technology, they managed to construct a partial profile of an unknown male. However, they faced some challenges, but fortunately in 2019, with additional funding from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, renewed DNA testing opened up new avenues for further investigation. Finally, in 2023, a breakthrough emerged as the police turned to the power of genetic genealogy. They enlisted DNA Labs International to conduct more tests aiming to create a S&P's profile by combing through public records and police resources. When the DNA matched to an individual, the investigators wasted no time and began building a family tree, painstakingly tracing down as many members from the assailant's family as possible. For this, the police went a step further by reaching out to all of the killer's family members and requesting their DNA samples. To their surprise, the family agreed and cooperated willingly by providing their DNA for testing. When all the necessary tests were completed, the DNA evidence found on Debbie was a perfect match. The killer was identified as William B. Rose from Mableton. However, the twist was that Rose took his own life in 1974, just 2 years after he abducted and killed Debbie. At that time, he was only 24 years old. The reason behind Rose's decision to take his own life was driven by fear. Even during a previous arrest for an alcohol-related incident, he lived in constant fear, as revealed by one of his family members who spoke to the police. The authorities believed that Rose must have harbored a deep fear that one day the police might catch up to him for the terrible crime he committed. To avoid facing the consequences, he chose to end his life before that could happen. Remarkably, during the initial investigation, Rose had never even appeared on the police's radar, making his identity as Debbie's killer all the more unexpected. While it seemed unlikely that Rose and Debbie were close acquaintances, there was a connection through their families as both resided in the same complex. In that neighborhood, children often played together on a nearby playground. This suggested the possibility that Rose might have seen Debbie on previous occasions, and when the opportunity presented itself, he carried out his sinister plan. To definitively confirm Rose as the real killer, the police, with the family's consent, exhumed his body after nearly 5 decades. They conducted various tests, and the results left no room for doubt that William B. Rose was indeed the perpetrator, who tragically took the life of 9-year-old Debbie Randall in a horrific manner. The long-awaited revelation of the perpetrator's identity brought closure to the case, but it was bittersweet. Sadly, Debbie Randall's parents, Juanita and John, never learned that the mystery of their daughter's death had finally been solved. Juanita passed away in 2018 after battling with leukemia, and John followed in 2022. Losing a child, especially at such a young age, is a pain beyond words. This family had waited patiently for decades, hoping for answers. Detective Browdy acknowledged that while this information provided closure, it could never replace the profound sorrow of losing Debbie Randall. After a relentless pursuit of justice for his sister spanning 5 decades, Debbie's brother Marvin expressed his heartfelt sentiments, saying, "I wish my mother was here, but I know she's in heaven now, and it's finally over. We want to say thank you to all of you for making this day possible. We wish that Debbie's soul finds eternal peace." What are your thoughts on this case? Why would Rose have killed little Debbie? Was that just because he got a chance that day, or was it already planned? We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to drop your recommendations in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to unfold.